If you wanted a nice, happy gospel where Jesus is patting you on your head and saying, oh, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, well, you sure didn't get it today, did you? No way. Who among you would say to your servant who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, who of you, if you're the boss and you have an employee who's been working hard all day long, and the employee comes in, would you say, sit down, let me serve you dinner? No, you'd say, feed me my dinner. After I've eaten, then you can eat and then clean up. And he goes, is he grateful to that servant because he did what he was commanded? So it should be with you. Jesus is telling us there are things you're supposed to do. And if you do those things, well, I'll be proud of you. But you're doing what you're supposed to do, so don't expect an award or a medal or a little citation, okay? Because that's what you're supposed to do. We have duties, we have obligations, we have responsibilities. They're not optional, are they? They're commandments, they're duties. And if we do it, well, good for us. We deserve credit for doing our duty. But that's all we're doing. We're doing our duty. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done what we were obliged to do. If I love God and love you, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't get a bonus. I don't deserve a bonus. That's what I'm supposed to do. And the gospel says, Jesus himself, when you do all you have been commanded, say, we are unprofitable servants. Well, if you go to the translation we used to use, we are useless servants. We have done no more than our duty. So if you're doing your duty, well, good for you. That was pounded into me when I was growing up, and I grew up believing I have a duty to do and I'm supposed to do it. And when I did it, and I expected them to be smiling real big, they said, okay, you did what you were supposed to. Good for you. Why is it that we don't want to do more? Why is it that we just want to do our duty and then leave it at that? Jesus is calling us. In this gospel, I really believe Jesus is saying to each one of us today, why are you standing still? Why are you so afraid to move forward, to grow, to do more, to be more? Why are you satisfied with being a mediocre saint? I want you to be a great saint. And you don't want to. You want to stay right where you are. You want to be just as comfortable as you are now, or just as uncomfortable as you are now, and stay there. And Jesus is saying, that's not what I want for you. That's not the example I gave you. And I'm asking you to follow me. I'm not asking you to do more than I did. I'm just asking you to follow me. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and step forward. Now, maybe that's stupid. You don't close your eyes and step forward, do you? No, unless you're following Jesus, because Jesus doesn't play by the rules. Have y'all figured that out yet? Years ago, right? Those of us who are more than 3. Jesus don't play by the rules. He is the rules. We follow him wherever he goes. And a lot of times we don't like where he's going. Where he's going is depressing. It's frightening. It's unfair. See, that's the thing that gets most of us. A lot of us as children, we were taught, you got to play fair. You got to be fair. The most important, be honest, play fair. And we get that into our heads. And we don't want to be merciful because that's not fair. That's forgiving people who don't deserve it. So we pretend to love them, but we really resent them. And Jesus is saying, do more. Be more. That's what I'm asking you. Sometime today, if you can get some quiet time, just you and Jesus, okay? Ask him, what is it you want from me? Because if you're like me, there's a couple of things he's letting you know he wants, and you're making excuses, just like I am. We're finding ways around him. And then we wonder why we don't feel his joy. You ignore somebody, you pay no attention to them, and then your feelings are hurt because they're not being nice to you. But we ignore Jesus because we're afraid. Ask him, okay, Lord, this gospel today is not an accident. Say something to me. What are you calling me to? And when you begin to realize it, you may not want it, and you may not like it. Okay? That's when you prove how much you love Jesus. Yesterday, at the 5:30 Mass, we celebrated San Lorenzo Ruiz. He was the first Filipino citizen who was canonized as a saint. He lived in the 17th century in the Philippines, and he was known to be a very kind, gentle, holy man. He served at Mass. Back in those days, children were not allowed to serve at Mass. It was adults. Served at Mass daily. I believe he had a job working with the church. He worked very quietly and worked well. He had a wife and children. He was a happy man living a quiet life, and the people liked him. Then it happened that two Spanish sailors in a bar got into a fight, and somebody was murdered. Now, for a number of years, I worked at the hospital, and many of the nurses I worked with were Filipino. They were wonderful ladies, and they were very good nurses. I enjoyed working with them, and I learned a lot from them. One of the things I learned is that everything bad that happened in the Philippines is because of the Chinese. It's all their fault. I guess we all have our prejudices, don't we, sadly? But they were insisting that it's the Chinese who are making all the problems in the Philippines. I said, okay. I found out San Lorenzo Luis was half Chinese and half Filipino. And when the man was murdered in the bar fight, well, the police were Spaniards. Remember, the Spaniards came over to the New World a little bit ahead of the other people in Europe, and so they claimed South America as their own property. And, well, the English took most of North America. So, they just decided to divide up the world, and the people who were living there, well, they're naturally inferior, so we don't have to worry about them. So you have a situation where a man is murdered. The police are Spaniards. The sailors who did the murder were Spaniards, but we can't arrest a Spaniard now, can we? The Spaniards own all the Philippines, so, well, let's arrest a Chinese person and kill him for it. No, because then they'll get angry. So we could arrest a Filipino. Yeah, but then the Filipino people will get angry. What about this guy? He's a Filipino Chinese. Nobody likes him. We'll arrest him and kill him. We'll execute him. And see, that's how the law works. At least that's how it was in the Philippines in the 17th century. Now in the United States, it's nothing like that, of course. We all know that. Isn't it sad how things don't change? Anyway, I had been told that what I had read about San Lorenzo was that he was arrested for murder and he ran away. He fled. He fled the country. Now I was thinking, well, if you're innocent, why are you running away? That was before I found out he never committed the murder. And he knew that he would be executed for it, just to keep the government happy. So his goal was to run away for a while, just hide, get his family, move to another island in the Philippines, and continue life. But there were some priests who were leaving at the same time. They said, well, come with us. What they didn't tell him was they were going to Japan. So he's with these Dominican priests. They arrive in Japan. And when they arrive in Japan, they find out that the government is killing the Catholics. The government has decided the Christian religion is going to overtake the government, and that the Catholics are particularly guilty, so let's kill all the Catholics. So they took the priests and Lorenzo, and started torturing them to make them give up their faith. They refused. They refused to deny Jesus Christ. They were tortured to death. Now that's a great saint, isn't it? It's unfair. He didn't deserve it. Lorenzo did absolutely nothing wrong. He didn't kill anyone. He wasn't in any bar fight. He wasn't even in the bar. Yet look how he suffered. Why? Well, because of the evil of humanity. Pride, arrogance, prejudice, selfishness, self-righteousness. I mean, all these sins are what killed the man. But like Jesus Christ, he accepted us because he deserved it, not because it was fair, but in spite of all of that. That's what being a great saint is about, honestly following Jesus day after day. And we don't want to, at least not too closely. We want Jesus to be at a comfortable distance so we can hate the people we want to hate and love the people we want to love and just say, well, it's all right. Do you remember our responsorial psalm? We sang it a few minutes ago. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Don't harden your heart if you hear God's voice. You can be frightened. In fact, sometimes that's the most reasonable, sensible thing to do. Be really, really frightened. You're asking me to do something I don't want, Lord. No, 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 no. Let him do it. But if you do not harden your heart, what did St. Paul write to Timothy in our second reading? St. Paul's letter to Timothy was written shortly before St. Paul was executed. And St. Paul said to Timothy, stir into flame the gift of God that you have. For God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, but rather of power and love and self-control. Guard this rich trust with the help of the Holy Spirit that dwells within us. You catechumens are here today, I think, because the Holy Spirit has guided you to this place. And you're following the promptings of the Holy Spirit to see, is this real? You're trying to verify, aren't you? You're trying to discern. Well, all the rest of us who have been here, some of us for many years, we're trying to follow that Holy Spirit, and we're trying to discern, is this where you want me to stay? What do you want me to do here? If you want me to stay here, you must have a reason for it. What do you want me to do? Are we asking that question? Are we saying, ask him? Not me. This gospel isn't an accident. It's real. The gospel began with the apostles asking Jesus, increase our faith. Well, Jesus always listens. And he doesn't promise us what we want. He promises to give us what we need in his will. We do not have a spirit of cowardice. We have the Holy Spirit. Is the Holy Spirit free inside of you? Or is the Holy Spirit locked in a box?